Congratulations.
Thanks,
First
Jake.
off,
Appreciate it.
almost 22 years.
Almost.
Yeah.
1 month and a half short.
Good. Congratulations.
Thanks.
So this was really Chenta's idea back in the day. I don't know if you saw his video yet,
I have not.
So we did a video. One of his, I guess he wanted to improve upon how some of our people leave the department.
Mm-hmm.
There were some really great emails that people write and they actually take time and energy, and then other ones that are just like, well, bye, see you later.
Bye. Yeah.
And at least on Chenta's part, he was like, there's so much more that people could be contributing as they leave.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much knowledge that a 20 or 22-year guy has that they're just walking away with. And so we've been trying to be more cognizant of inviting retirees to events, even having them come over for breakfast, things like that. And then this was another one where, hey, maybe before you leave, we just catch up with you and get like your side of things or anything that you want to discuss. So that's the whole intent on this. And so you almost squeaked by. Saw you sent out the email, and I was like, oh man, I need to call and make sure he's down with this.
Sure.
So I'm glad you can make it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So first question that I kind of would like to open with is, what was probably like the best part of the job for you?
Truly the best part of the job was serving the community, being able to help. We as firefighters want to fix people, we want to help people, we want to serve our community, we want to do a greater good. We often put everything above ourselves, and that's just kind of the motto of a firefighter, and that's just what we do. So serving the community for 22 years is a very proud moment for me, leaving this city and this department better than when I believe that I found it. And certainly working with the firefighters here, this is probably one of the best group of people that I've ever worked with, and the motivation and the discipline and the training is just it's so much better than where we started from 22 years ago. So those two things are probably my proudest times, my most reflective times.
There's been a lot that's happened in 22 years for sure. You're kind of going over that with Wallen right now. What do you see as perhaps one of like the biggest leaps that we've done since your time in the fire department?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just from an operational perspective, taking on a squad unit is probably the biggest. I remember being a part of what we called the Ambulance Review Committee back in 2003 and 2004, and that group was kind of put together in the event that AMR just left the city, and what would we do?
Okay.
And so we had to come up with strategies and proposals of, if that did happen, how would we do patient care, patient transport, who would we hire, what level of certification. And funny that almost 15 years later, we're actually doing that now, and a lot of what we discussed back then is actually being implemented now. But back then, it was kind of a pipe dream. I don't think the fire department was truly interested in going that direction. It was just more of a what if, because we had to serve our community and had to have a plan in case we didn't have an ambulance group. But we still have our ambulance group, but now we have squad companies, and that's been, in my mind, at least operationally, probably the biggest shift that we've done. And then this the other side of MIH, I mean, that's huge too, and that's just growing on a whole separate side and has a whole separate staff, and treating a lot of these clients that would normally call 911, that now they're taking care of that side of it, and we're not having as many frequent flyers. So I think those are probably our two biggest shifts right now. And then the fact that when I started in 2000, we had 90 guys and girls, women. And now we have 180, so we've doubled our size of the fire department. So those are probably the three biggest shifts that I've seen so far, and it's really interesting to watch. And I really truly believe we're moving in the right direction, and I'm really excited to watch this department grow even more and expand even more and provide even more services.
You had a pretty different career from some of the usuals, I would say. you kind of got ops, admin, training, prevention, back to ops. You did a lot of different things. If you could rank those and like kind of some of the biggest takeaways now that you're walking away, how would you rank those, or is it even possible?
I don't know that it's possible, because they all served their purposes in my career in various ways, and they were all very important jobs to me. And I think when we come into the fire department, we come in thinking, I just want to do firefighter, and I just want to be an operational lieutenant or an operational driver. And the fire department is very versatile, and there's so many different avenues you can go and you can try. And I just, when I came in, my biggest mindset was, I'm going to do whatever the department needs. They hired me. I'm kind of at their will. Would I like to do the way I want to do it? Sure. But, I'm here for them. I want to serve them. And if the chief comes and asks me to help, then I'm going to help. And that started back in 2003 when they needed help with computers. And I had some computer background, so I kind of took that over. And then slowly progressed into other groups and other committees, and just kept volunteering for as many things as I could, and then that all parlayed into obviously me becoming an operational lieutenant for a few years. And then, like I said, the chief came and asked me to interview for the training officer position, and I got it. I was a little leery about taking it because I really enjoyed operations, but he had asked me if I would take it, and I told him yeah. And so I made the most out of that experience, and I learned as much as I could, and I put together some groups that are still being used today in the training division, and kind of set a course for other guys to then take over and build off of that, and then build off of that. And I see the evolution of all this rebuilding going on, but when I took over the training division, there was nothing at the time, and I was just kind of given some notes and asked to come up with some plans, and so I used the resources that I had, and I came up with those plans. And then in 2011, the chief came and asked if I would be interested in testing for fire marshal. And, well, he was asking. It sounded like he was interested in me, and so I tested. And I that was a whole separate thing. I was like starting over as a rookie again, because I didn't have a huge background in prevention, and so. But it challenged me, and it pushed me, and it made me learn, and I was very involved and tried to do the best that I could do in prevention for the years that I was there. And I learned all about the city, and it was a whole separate side than the fire department. And I had a lot of meetings and knew a lot of people in the city, and we did a lot of good things in fire prevention through my office in the fire marshal's office. And so that was a great career step for me, because I learned a whole separate side of the fire service that not a lot of people know about, that actually helps in the operational side of the fire service. So that was great too. And then they asked me to take over operational support. I was ready to leave the fire marshal's office at that point, and it was a new challenge. It was operational support was a little different. There was a lot going on. I had never dealt with so many budgets before. Didn't know anything about really like purchasing that kind of material or that much supplies, or even EMS supplies. And I had been out of EMS for 9 years at this point, and we changed a lot of our drugs, and we changed a lot of how we do things, and so I had to get real familiar with that. But it forced me to learn again. And the one thing that I would say through this whole process, before I get to my next step, is we have to embrace change. And if we're going to just kick rocks and put our heads down and say, oh, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to embrace the change, you're never going to grow, you're never going to learn. You're always going to be stuck in that pattern, and it's not going to help your career. For me, I was fortunate to be able to have all these opportunities to learn all these positions, and it all helped my career, and I was very versatile, I was very marketable. And then my last step, I think I shocked a lot of people. I think the chief shocked a lot of people when he allowed me to come back to operations. And I think I had a lot of naysayers going, oh, what is he doing coming back? But, the one thing that they don't realize is I pushed myself to learn as much as I could, as fast as I could. A lot of it was rehashing just some old things. I did have my blue card, so it wasn't like I completely left operations for 10 years not knowing anything. But, I challenged myself, and I pushed myself every day to learn that job the best I could. And I embraced that change. And, all these changes were a little fearful, but you have to have a growth mindset in order to get through this. Of course, you're going to make mistakes along the way. You can't worry about what people are going to say about you and your mistakes. You have to just persevere. You have to push through. You have the persistence. You have to have the right attitude moving forward. And that propelled me through the shift commander so that job I truly enjoyed at the end. I was very thankful to Chief Smith about being able to retire out of operations. And, so all of those steps were all very pivotal in my career. I can't really rank one because I thought I made changes in each of those positions to better the department. And that was always my goal, was to better the department, leave it better than where you found it. And, having that attitude and that mindset and wanting to do better and really trying my hardest to get those jobs done, all kind of put me to where I am today. And I leave this department with really no regrets. I put 100% into it every day. Some days I put probably more than 100%. And, sometimes the organization can take from you, but I leave knowing that I put in the most amount of effort that I could, and I feel like I've left it better than where I started. So,
how hard was that learning curve of you going from admin for quite a while back into ops, and not only back into ops, but now you're in charge of a whole battalion, and you need to get to know your people, get to know strategy and tactics again, and get your feet wet on staffing again on a bigger scale. And was that a pretty big learning curve, and how did you accomplish that?
That's really a good question, Jake, because I think a lot of people had doubts. The only one that didn't have a doubt was me. And I didn't let doubt come into my mind to affect what I was doing. This is a position that I wanted. I was ready to take it on. I was ready to do whatever I had to do, and I wasn't going to doubt myself doing it. When you have 25 to 45 lives at hand, you're going to take it seriously. And so I prepared. I studied. I had my blue card. I did my blue card again. The preparation was key. The one thing that I would tell people is you can't do it all by yourself, and you have to be able to reach out to people for help. And I think one of the things, and at least when I started, was most people didn't want to reach out for help. They have this bravado about I don't need to ask for help, and well, why aren't they helping me? Why do I have to go ask them? And I truly believe, like, if you really want something bad enough and you have a goal in mind and you want to do the best you can, you're going to seek those answers from the people that can help you. And the one thing I've learned about our department is that everybody's willing to help. If you go and ask them, they'll help you. But you have to take the step to ask. And all too often, I still see in this department people not asking for help. They just expect it to come to them. And I have to remind them that if this is your goal, you need to seek it out. You can't expect everybody to hold your hand through a process and get that information. You've got to do it yourself. So, I did have some staffing challenges, but I sought the right people to talk to get the help. If we had different fires, I would call certain shift commanders to talk about fires and how they would handle it. When you talk about personnel, fortunately, I had managed a few people in prevention and in operational support. But I think the one thing is you have to know your role, and you have to understand where you are in that hierarchy. And people want to trust you. You have to build that trust. The only way to build that trust is to show them that you know what you're doing. You have to care truly about who they are and what they're doing, and help them in their careers progress. If you can put all that together, along with just the respect and treating them fairly, open communications, making sure you understand their problems, letting them speak when they need to speak and get things off their chest, you build that trust and that rapport. And I think at the end of that, you have that camaraderie, and then they have that level of respect for you. And so I had known that going in, and that's exactly what I tried to do. Was I perfect at it? No, but I don't think anybody is. I think as long as the mistakes that you have going through, as long as you learn from them and build from them, then you're going to be a better leader. those in our organization that make mistakes, that don't ever try to improve themselves, are just going to stay in those mistakes for a long time. And when you have that many lives on the line all the time, you can't keep doing mistake after mistake. You have to always continually improve yourself. So I put the time in, and I sought the resources that I needed to seek to learn this. And I asked a lot of questions, and probably too many questions to some of the shift commanders that I was talking with. But at the end of the day, and right before I left, I felt very completely confident of the supervision I was providing to the shift, and I felt confident in my skills and abilities at this job. And I felt like I was hitting a full stride right as I was walking out. I didn't want to walk out, but as fate has it, sometimes it's just time that you got to turn the page. But so I would say that those were the challenges that I had, and those are how I overcame those challenges. And you have to have the right mindset. You can't let doubt creep in. You can't worry about what people are going to say about you, because I know that people had some doubts coming in or when I came in, and hopefully I turned their doubts around and showed them that I could do the job. And
so you said that you had a good feeling that you could do the job. Did you ever doubt yourself going into the job?
I didn't doubt myself going into the job. I was just more worried because I hadn't done operations in a while, and trying to make that adjustment from 40s to now 48s.
Right, yeah.
It wasn't a 24-48 anymore. It was a 48-96. And that was a bigger adjustment to make because it was 2 full days on, and trying to listen to tones go off and trying to figure out where crews are going, and learning some of the things that I didn't have to do in operational support or fire prevention. And now I'm doing them, one of which was tracking the MDT and the squads and where's AMR and how to manage those resources. And but with time and with a lot of questions and perseverance of just learning the system, you overcome those obstacles. And so I wouldn't say I ever had doubt. Confidence has to be at the top of any shift commander or battalion chief. You have to have the confidence, and then you have to have the knowledge. And if you show chinks in your armor of lack of confidence or lack of knowledge, that's going to bring doubt around the guys and the ladies, and you don't want that. And so I didn't want to show that I had lack of confidence in myself. I mean, that's the worst thing you could do as a leader. So I came in more with, I have the confidence, I know I can do the job. I might not be perfect at some of these things, but I will learn them, and I did.
So you talked about the best part of your job is servitude in a variety of ways, right?
Yep.
What would you say was probably the hardest part of the job?
I think most people agree with me on this one is personnel problems or personnel issues and personnel discipline. I think everybody is probably familiar with the story that I had when I was in charge of the Honor Guard and having to discipline a couple of individuals through that. And it was very hard because you build relationships with people in the fire service, right? And you're close to these people, and the last thing you ever want to see is for them to get in trouble. But that was the hardest, and then just dealing with some of the issues that people have with each other, and trying to smooth those over and get them to resolve issues. Those are probably the 2 biggest. But personnel issues and discipline are probably they were the most challenging, and I think that's for anybody, anywhere, in any organization.
Yeah, I feel like Vicente kind of reiterated the same thing, asked him that question, and he just said, yep, working with all the other people and trying to work with myself in that mix of everyone else. So yeah, it's a different nut here at the fire department, where you're trying to figure out how to get all these different personalities on the same goal and on the same mission.
Yeah.
Everybody has the same foundation, the same want to serve, but how we go about it could be vastly different sometimes.
It's challenging, and a lot of us really have some very opinionated ideas and really want to pull a direction in the right way that they think. So yeah, that is very challenging. But at the end of the day, I think if you have a good team, they'll come together, they'll work together, and sometimes you're not always going to get your way, and that's okay. I mean, and sometimes you will, and that's okay too. But at the end of the day, making sure that everybody comes together and is in the same direction, even if you were the one that was a little bit against it. Now it's time to jump on the bus and move forward. You can't be that one that lags behind just because you didn't get your way because of what you wanted. And I think that Chief Smith has assembled a very good team that can really work together. And we may have our differences, but at the end of the day, we'll maybe agree to disagree, but we're all on the same bus moving forward.
Okay, so let's go back to ops, since that's how you ended. You could pick your spot on like where you want to go. So you could be driver, lieutenant, hydrant, nozzle, irons, whatever you want, vent. Where do you want to be in that picture? Rolling to a structure fire, or you could be battalion if you want to.
Jake, that's a good question. I'll tell you, when I was a firefighter in the early 2000s, we had a lot of fires. Mm-hmm. And I had plenty of nozzle time on there, and it was great. And I remember the first fire I ever had, and we crawled in 5 feet, and it was just completely blacked out. And, I'd only been in probably 3 months, if that, and we had a room in the back of a residential home that was fully involved, and you couldn't see anything. And I just thought, oh, this is it. This is the greatest, And after we put the fire out, I was on cloud 9, and it was just probably one of the best feelings of my life, because I think everybody that's on your crew that's behind you is questioning, is this guy going to do it or is he not going to do it? And is he going to freak out or not freak out? Because it was a heavy fire, and there was a lot of smoke, and you couldn't see in front of you, even a few inches in front of you. And it was a great experience, a great feeling. We were first in, we put the fire out, and so that was a highlight for sure there. I mean, it's almost 20 years now that fire happened, 22 years almost that it happened, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. So that's a hard question, because then as a driver, we were first in at the China Buffet fire, and at that time, that was the biggest fire that we'd really had.
So you're the one that burned it down?
No, I got the water. I didn't put it out. I made sure they had water. I made sure they had water. But I remember that night I had every single hose off of my engine with water. And I was managing all these pressures and had to ask for 2 boosts of the water pump because they weren't getting us enough water. And we were obviously losing the building, right? And so it was a great feeling, because I can say, we were first in, and I pumped at that fire, and there were no mistakes at the pump with that night with that size of fire, and so that was a huge accomplishment. And so I had a great time at that, and then as a lieutenant, that was a blast, because now you're managing a couple of guys and you're showing them what you know, and you're kind of the first, you're the lead of the fire when you're first in, and making those critical decisions and making sure nobody gets hurt. And, you're having to trust your confidence in your skills that when you go in, it's going to be safe, and you're going to know when to back out and not put your crew in a dangerous situation. And I enjoyed that leadership aspect. I really did. It was fun. I wished I maybe had spent a little bit more time over there, but, sometimes in your career, like, these opportunities just pop up, and they're not going to come around that often. And sometimes you got to make a little bit of a sacrifice in one area to gain in another. And so that's when the training officer came up, and that was great too. I mean, it was a different skill set, and it was a pivotal part of this department, because we had no training division for quite a while, and so that was great too. But I'll tell you that if I could go back 20 years, I'd probably do fireman again. Firefighter. Yeah. But I'm not a young guy anymore. I still think I could do the job, but I think I better am served as like the shift commander. And that was the job I truly enjoyed, was a battalion chief in general, because I loved prevention. Those guys were awesome. We did a lot of great things in prevention. But my operations was always where my heart was at the end of the day, and I was looking forward to coming back. And I'll love prevention with all my heart. I learned so much from them. I learned so much from the fire code, and I still walk into buildings looking for fire sprinklers and
Yeah.
and silly things like that. But shift commander is truly, truly what I enjoyed, and I was very happy that I finished my career out there. So I look back and I think I would just do shift commander right now at my age.
Yeah.
It's probably the easiest on my health right there. But they were all great jobs, and they all served their purposes, and I had a blast at each position I ever took. And I leave, like I said, I leave knowing that I did the best I could in each of those positions. And I put everything I had into it. Like I said, I tried to sign up for all the groups, committees, whatever I could get my hands on. I was ready to go. And so that's a tough question, but I think shift commander at the end of the day.
Yeah, it sounds like everyone that I've talked to, it's not necessarily the position. I think it's more so kind of our personalities is I just want to be in that moment where I'm tested to like my utmost.
Yeah.
And like I want that challenge. And so that's pretty cool to hear that like no matter where you bounce around, if you're ops, admin, whatever the challenge is, you want like that ultimate challenge that kind of pushes your skill set.
Yeah,
I feel like for us as firefighters, that's when we lock in and when the job is the best. And that's why I'm always hoping for fires because everyone's so much happier after fires.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like you finally got that carrot that you're like chasing. You finally get it and everything is better for a while. Then after like 6 months, if you don't have a fire for 6 months, everyone gets kind of grumpy and a little itchy, wanting just to get after something. And so it's good to finally get a job.
Well,
So.
we spend half of our career studying and training for these fires that may or may not come. I mean, we work a third of the year, and so your opportunity to have a first in fire is a third of a third or a third of an eighth. And so I mean, it's tough to get those fires a lot. And back in the day, we didn't have to compete so much for that. I mean, it was that we had a lot of fires back then. And but yeah, it's very hard to train and to study and then to not get anything. And
Yeah.
but you're 100% right, Jake. The challenge is putting that all together and seeing how you did at the end of it. And how did that come out? What did you learn? What could you do better? And yeah, you're 100% right. And that was the benefit. Aside from the people that you have on shift as a shift commander and the relationships you build with each one of those crews, which was absolutely amazing, it was the challenge of the job. Like even telestaff is a chess game of challenge.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And trying to put people in the right positions and making sure you have the right numbers and the right certifications. And even that, I mean, it was fun, but because it keeps you thinking, and then you're waiting for the fire because you want to say, okay, I'm ready to do this, and so yeah, you're 100% right.
Do you have any regrets or anything that you wish you could have? Now looking back, you've finished the entirety of your career. Looking back on that, are there some moments where it's like, I probably could have approached this differently or done this better? Or
oh, sure. Like yeah, I mean, like I said, there's going to be bumps in the road in anybody's career. Mm-hmm. It's how you respond to those bumps in the road. I have some things I wished I had done better, or wished I had communicated better, or wished I had handled better. But we're human when we make mistakes. And like I said earlier, everybody's going to make that mistake. It's what did you learn from the mistake, and did you grow from it? And are you going to handle it differently if it comes around the next time? And that was what I hope that I showed to the membership is, okay, yeah, I made a mistake, but I learned from it, and it's not going to happen again, and I'll do things much differently the next time. Mm-hmm. And I think that attitude really helps perpetuate people moving to a next level. And but yeah, I mean, I did have some bumps in the road.
Yeah. Which I think is fine. I think that shows a higher level of maturity. A lot of people, especially when you're younger, you almost have this motto of like, no regrets, I'm going to live my life to the fullest.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you truly live your life to the fullest and you have some awareness of like who you are, you're going to have regrets.
Sure.
Because for sure there's going to be mistakes that happen along the way. Like you're saying you're perfect your entire life.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're saying if you look back and you have no regrets. Like the most important thing is like, can you look back on it and learn from it and fix that mistake, or are you just going to keep recycling that mistake? So I think that's testament to you, especially in all the different realms that you've been in, is your adaptability.
Yeah.
So,
well, and you know, a critical thing, Jake, is is owning it. That's the first thing you have to do. Is when you make a mistake, you own it, and you let people know you made a mistake. It's okay to admit that you made a mistake. I mean, I'm not above myself to say, hey, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'll apologize for it even. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think people will much rather appreciate that you owned the fact that you made a mistake, that you were apologetic for the mistake, you actually talked to them about it, and you're actually improving from it. And I think, I'm not saying I'm like a great leader, but I think that's what good leaders do. Good to great, right? And is owning that, is apologizing, is learning, and is growing. And I think if everybody adopts that mentality going through their career, I think they're capable of doing just about anything in this department.
So you kind of mentioned Good to Great, which made me think of, I don't know if you've read it, there's a whole book of like Good to Great, Built to Last, and Why the Mighty Fall, I think is the last one. So I know you are an avid reader. Do you have any books that you would recommend that kind of helped you along the way?
There's tons. I mean, gosh. I mean, any leadership book that I've ever read. I was talking to somebody the other day, and one of the books that we had back in the day was From Buddy to Boss. And it was pivotal back then because there really wasn't a whole lot of leadership books for the fire service, but this was kind of geared towards the fire service, and that was kind of the first book that I had read that Bruce Brinkerhoff had told me about. And he retired out of here as a shift commander, and that was kind of one of the books that he gave me, was Buddy to Boss. And I think that's a hard separation for people in the fire department, is when you get a leadership position, you got to remember you're not the buddy anymore. You're the boss, and you got to stand up for the rules, and you got to stand up for the organization, and you can't let stuff slide, because once stuff slides, more stuff slides, and then it's very hard to backtrack and that passive aggressive. Oh, no, stop! You can't do that anymore. Well, you let me do it for this long. Well, yeah, it's better just to curb it then, just stop it then. Always trying to do the right thing. That's the integrity part of the job, right? Is even when nobody's looking, do the right thing. And making sure you have those skills to be able to lead. There's so many books. The 48 Laws of Power, anything by Patrick Lencioni. We've talked about I don't know how many different books. One of the books, Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. David Goggins. I mean, if you really want to
get motivated,
David Goggins. You and I have talked about Joe Rogan. Any you want to get intellectual and learn about different things, Joe Rogan. But there's just so many books. My advice is just pick a book. Just open a book. Read something that will help you grow your career. Read something that motivates you, that challenges you a little bit, that gets your mind open to maybe a different aspect or a point of view. Because you're not ever going to know it all. And I don't necessarily think leaders are born, but leaders are made. And how they're made is you start opening books, and then you start talking about leadership, and you build from those skills, and you take classes. And I mean, there's plenty of videos on YouTube to watch about leadership. And so I really just think the first step is just open a book and read it and challenge yourself to finish. And what did you take away from it? And can you apply those to your career? Or can you apply those to the people you're working with? And there's so many books. I may, now that you challenged me to that, I may go home tonight and write a list.
Yeah,
provide a
start
list.
Looking at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be nice. So past the books, do you have certain mentors in your department or in our department that you feel helped you along the way, provided some guidance, whether it be even on the business side or even like personal life type stuff that maybe you like to thank or just acknowledge?
Oh man, that's a good question, and that kind of hits home a little bit. Just because if you do 20 years, even whatever, 25 years now for a career, the one thing you'll learn is you cannot make it on your own. In any of these positions, you cannot make it on your own. If you're a firefighter, you're probably learning from the other firefighters, driver and lieutenant. You know, if you're a driver, you're probably learning from your lieutenant. If you're a lieutenant, you're probably learning from the shift commander. And you realize that's when you realize, like, I can't make it on my own, and I need people in my life to help me, and asking for that help. Gosh, there's so many. I mean, I look back and. I mean, even the lieutenants that were back there that are no longer here today, I mean, those guys were, you know, they were all great. And they just really helped me kind of in my initial years of my career. You know, the pivotal ones, I mean, if you know Bruce Brinkerhoff, I mean, he was just a wealth of knowledge in just about every aspect of life. I mean, if you had a personal problem, he had the answer for you. If you had a fire question, he could tell you all about fire. If you know what I mean. And so he was one of the guys that I truly enjoyed talking with. We had a conversation just the other day, and we're still good friends today. But we still agree to disagree on things, but we have those conversations and we just move on. It is what it is. But we don't leave with hard feelings or anything else. I mean, that's part of life, right? And being able to respect somebody else's opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but you know. So Bruce was great. Rusty Smith was another one that was just phenomenal. That guy's work ethic was above and beyond probably 99% of our organization. That guy could do it all. He knew it all, and he was just a great person behind all that.
Good humility through it all as well.
Oh yeah,
He'd outwork you and still just chuckle along with you like it was no big deal.
He never made anything out of anything, and he would, you know, often stay late when nobody knew he was here, come in on weekends, and then he'd fix stuff in the department that like was way out of his job description, but he would do it. And even on his last day, he was supposed to leave at 4:00, and he stayed till 6:30 just because he was trying to finish what he wanted to finish before he left. And I mean, that was a good, you know, quality of who he was as a person. You know, Travis Brown was really a good mentor to me. He taught me a lot about budget and how to handle the fire code and how to deal with a lot of the city and the contractors. Steve Mims was probably one of the best supervisors I ever had in my career. Just an amazing dude, just cool, calm, collected. Yeah. Could never tell if he was upset or happy, or he just had that stone cold face, but just a super guy and so intelligent, and just he could get through just about any problem there was. You know, a lot of the shift commanders today, you know, I've leaned on a few of those guys, and they're fantastic. Mike Daniels is probably the spur that got me to operations and got me thinking about operations again. And without him, I don't know that I would have come to operations at that time. And so for all of you that wanted to know why I came over, you can blame Mike Daniels for at least putting that back in my mind at the very end of my career. But Mike's been fantastic too, and I know you, as you work for him, I mean, he's a great guy, and he knows so much about the job. You know, so yeah, those are the real big mentors. I would like to thank Chief Smith for allowing me, trusting in me, giving me the go-ahead to move to operations. Without him, that would never have been possible. So I am certainly appreciative of him, and I'm super excited for him and his administration moving this organization into the future. I think he's going to do an excellent job as chief. But, you know, looking back, I mean, those were probably the more pivotal players that I mentioned, but everybody that I ever came across had an impact in my career in some form or fashion. Yeah. And they all made me better. Some challenged me more than others, but they all made me better. And so I that's if you read my thank you letter to the department, it truly was a thank you, because without that and without all those things that ever came up and all those challenges and obstacles and good times, bad times, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I feel so blessed and fortunate that everything went the way it did, and I leave here happy, healthy. You know, I'm ready now to turn the page of this career and move forward. I will give a kudos to Lieutenant Jack Gardner. who he was the one. If I hadn't have ever known him, I probably would never have been in the fire department. He's the one that actually talked me into testing.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Wow.
And he tried to get me in '93, and then he called me again in '96, and then he called me again in 2000. And the third time was the charm, and that was the time I tested and got in. And, you know, back then we tested 500 or 600 people for that academy, and I was one of 11. So, I can't thank him enough for getting me in here, because without him, I don't know where I would be right now, but now I'm blessed to have this retirement and, get that check at the end of the month.
Nice. Anything else that you want to leave with?
I would just tell everybody, again, thank you for being a part of my career, making me the person that I am today. An attitude of gratitude. I think the one thing I'd really like to tell people is embrace change. The organization's going to grow, it's going to move. Just jump on the bus and go with it. And rather than being the negative Nancy, try to be positive and try to make those comments of positivity and how to make it better and providing input and not just complaining about it, because I think it's very easy to complain and hide behind somebody or something and just shoot out the complaints. But rather than complaining about it, turn the mindset around into how do we make it better? Like, if we're going to go this way, let's try to make it better and be a participant in groups and trainings and a voice of positive mindset, not of the negative mindset, because that only just detracts from what we're doing and it makes it harder. And, you don't want the ball rolling the other way. You want it moving forward. And that's the biggest thing that I've seen is trying to get the kitchen table conversations from complaining to how do we make it better and what can we do different and how do we implement this. And that's where I would like to see some of that table talk go, because it's easy to complain and it's easy once somebody opens that can of worms. It's easy for everybody to jump in, but nobody ever wants to do anything about it. And when you're in administration, that was one of the biggest things that we heard about is, they're complaining about this and that. Well, okay, they never came to us. They never told us about it. We didn't hear about it, and maybe people say, well, you should come to us too. Well, yeah, it goes both ways, and I get it. But I think if people are unhappy, they really just need to come forward and voice those opinions to get it worked out. Because I think what we find in most organizations, even the fire department included, is 90% of our issues are communications issues. And if we just could talk better to each other and make sure those communications flow both ways, I think we could reduce a lot of the problems. And I know Chief Smith is really trying for that, and he's really trying to have much more of an open book and open door policy of getting that information out. But communications is tough. So
awesome. All right, that's it. I'm gonna miss you, man.
Shit, I'm gonna miss you guys too. Yeah. Expect big things out of you, Jake.
Yes, sir. Of course.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate everything you do.
Yeah. You too, man.